Okay, we're back. So we left off on this description that Vonnegut is giving about what Harrison having to wear, right? And I think the most heartbreaking part here is how much these characters are buying into the propaganda. We talked about George right here, how he has to carry his 47 pounds of birdshot, and he really doesn't want any help carrying it because he feels he deserves it. Okay, that's the heartbreaking part of dystopias, I think, is some of these characters actually believe that this is normal. All right, and I think that's really difficult for us to see, and it gets even more heartbreaking when we see what Harrison goes through. I mean, yes, okay, he is 7 feet tall, fine, whatever, but he's 14 years old. To have a 14-year-old have to wear tremendous pairs of headphones that are, forcing horrible sounds into his ears every 20 seconds. Was it 20 seconds? Yeah, every 20 seconds, because he's smarter than everybody else. Or having, he has great eyesight, so now he has to wear the spectacles that make him half blind, give him these horrible headaches. I mean, how do we allow this to happen to a 14-year-old? And what would Vonnegut say to that? How do we do this? Why do we allow this? I mean, would we allow my 8-year-old who's right now falling asleep, right? Okay, the 8-year-old who's actually off camera falling asleep right now. I mean, he is this whiz at playing video games. I mean, this kid's incredible at playing video games. Does that mean that suddenly because of that, would I allow some apparatus be placed on him so that he wouldn't be so good and beat me at Plants vs. Zombies? No, that's not the way it works. Okay, that's his, he's good at that. That's his gift, and you all have your own gifts as well. And it's difficult to see this, right? Because they're like, oh no, he should be wearing all this. And let's see what else. Scrap metal was hung all over him. Ordinarily, there was a certain symmetry, a military neatness to the handicaps issued to strong people, but Harrison looked like he was wearing a junkyard. In the race of life, Harrison carried 300 pounds. Alright, so we have the big headphones, the glasses that give him migraines, 300 pounds of hardware all over himself. Okay, so he looks like Frankenstein's creature to a certain extent that you would watch in the films, not the book. And to offset his good looks, the H.G. man required that he wear at all times a red rubber ball for a nose, keep his eyebrows shaved off, covered his even white teeth with black caps, and a snaggletooth random. If you see this boy, said the ballerina, do not, I repeat, do not try to reason with him. Okay. So, imagine what Harrison looks like. Okay, imagine this poor child coming in. They've tried to beat him down. He's being tortured, because this is torture. Okay, what they're doing to him is just torturing this poor child, but yet his spirit cannot be tortured. All right, Harrison sees through all of this propaganda, and he says no. Right, what is his spirit doing? He and his ballerina are dancing, and that's an absolutely beautiful scene, right, where they're dancing and people are watching it on TV. And of course, okay, like I said, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. People are watching this on television, and what do you think? Do you all think that they're watching it and they're being awed by it? Okay, that people are watching it and it's going to change their mind? Okay, we think that, right? But let's see. So, as I said, Harrison... Okay, there was a shriek of a door being torn from its hinges. They shifted their weights to their toes. Harrison placed his big hands on the girl's tiny waist, letting her sense the weightlessness that would soon be theirs. And then, in an explosion of joy and grace, into the air they sprang. Not only were the laws of the land abandoned, but the law of gravity and the laws of motion as well. They reeled, whirled, swirled, flounced, capered, gamboled, and spun. They leaped like deer on the moon. The studio ceiling was 30 feet high, but each leap brought the dancers nearer to it. It became their obvious intention to kiss the ceiling, and they kissed it. Right, so this is very supernatural, right? They abandoned the laws of the land, because what are the laws of the land? That everyone is equal. Okay, not only once though they were abandoned, the law of gravity and the laws of motion were abandoned. Okay, this is it's a beautiful scene of supernatural, right? They're dancing, they kiss the ceiling. Then, neutralizing gravity with love and pure will, they remained suspended in the air, inches below the ceiling, and they kissed each other for a long time. All right, so why this? Why does Vonnegut decide to bring in this very fantasy like spiritual release that the dancer and Harrison have? Okay, because this is, you don't often think of dystopia and fantasy. It's always dystopia and science fiction. But why talk about that? Why not only break the laws of the land, but break the laws of gravity and motion? This is something that I want you all to think about. Maybe discuss it. Maybe this will be on your final exam. Maybe it will. Okay, but think about that, because this right here is something that's completely off from the rest of the story, right? Because up until now, we're reading a very heavy science fiction, short story where, yeah, this can happen, Wait a minute. What's happening here? Okay, but unfortunately, this beautiful dance, this releasing of the spirit doesn't last. It was then that Diana Moon Glampers, the handicapper general, came into the studio with a double-barreled 10-gauge shotgun. She fired twice, and the emperor and the empress were dead before they hit the floor. Diana Moon Glampers loaded the gun again. She aimed it at the musicians and told them they had 10 seconds to get their handicaps back on. And that right there is the end of Harrison himself. That's it. Right? He has this actually beautiful swan song, right? But he and the ballerina are killed. And you think, okay, this would be sort of an uplifting story, that he would maybe that this story right here of him dancing, the ballerina having like this beautiful spirit releasing dance, that would encourage, right, other people, that would maybe spur a revolution. Okay, this is like the Hunger Games, right? It spurs a revolution. Or trying to think of another dystopian story where this happens. Nothing's coming to mind, but let's do the Hunger Games, because I know most of you are familiar with it. Okay, in the Hunger Games, right, there's a revolution, and yes, people die, and people who shouldn't die have to die, and people who should die don't die, okay? But there's a revolution, and better things happen, and at the end, I mean, the world isn't perfect, but it's gotten better for people, right? Okay, that should be the story. Yeah, that's not the story here. Sorry. Okay, Kurt Vonnegut would be like, yeah, no, that's not the way life works, unfortunately. Because life isn't fair. It was then that the Bergerons' television tube burned out. Hazel turned to comment about the blackout to George, but George had gone into the kitchen for a can of beer. George came back in with the beer, paused while a handicap signal shook him up. Then he sat down again. "You've been crying," he said to Hazel. "Yep." What about?" "I forget," she said. "Something real sad on television." "What was it?" he said. "It's all kind of mixed up in my mind," said Hazel. "Forget sad things," said George. "I always do," said Hazel. "That's my girl," said George. He winced. There was a sound of a riveting gun in his head. "Gee, I could tell that was a doozy," said Hazel. "You could say that again," said George. "Gee," said Hazel, "I could tell that one was a doozy." Okay, so this doesn't have a nice ending. Okay, in a perfect world, right, George would have seen this, taken off the birdshot, maybe brought his friends up, tried to have some sort of revolution, but he doesn't. Okay, are his parents going to remember Harrison? Probably not. And the ending is just, it's very sad, because Hazel is a very simple woman. Okay, she's very simple. George goes off, gets a beer, comes back, and that's it. That's the end of it. Is Harrison? So there's something I want you all to maybe discuss. Do you all feel that Harrison's sacrifice was worth anything? If so, tell me what. If not, then what was the point? Then what is the point to the story? What is Vonnegut trying to tell us about this idea of extreme equality, of communism? What is he trying to say? There's one other thing I want to tell you guys. So if we say this, okay, yeah, communism is bad, right? Better dead than red. That was the call during the 50s and 60s. That's fine, but why have this McCarthyism society here, that you're afraid that people are going to tell on you, okay? So that he's not just talking about being anti-communist, but he's also saying, hey, don't let it go, the other direction where you have no trust in your own neighbors or in your own family, right? Which is what George does. Of course, George doesn't trust his own wife. So these are a lot of things to think about. But one thing I do want you all to keep in mind is, why have that ending? And what happens to George and Hazel? Is anything going to change? Okay, because for dystopia, right, we want things to change. We want things to get better. Hunger Games, it happens. I have no mouth and I must scream. It gets better for some of the major players, but obviously at the end, it doesn't get better for Ted. What happens here? Why are we left with such a sad ending? Okay, something to think about. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed this story. For next time, we are reading Martin Luther King. I'm not going to talk a lot about his life because you all know about him, okay? You all learn about the Reverend Luther King from the time that you're very little. So go ahead and read those. If any of it gives you problems, let me know. It really shouldn't. You all should be very familiar with his works. So keep up the discussions. I'm running a little behind on writing, but I am getting to them. You all are talking, bringing up some amazing topics, and I'm really happy about how it's getting, okay? So we're almost to the end. Is it too early to talk about your final exam? Is it? It's not. I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about it next time. It's going to be obviously done online because, hey, I can't have you in class. So it's probably going to be some sort of like essay format, okay? So we'll talk about it next time. So for now, wear your masks and take care of yourselves, okay? I'll see you guys next time. Bye.